The hall stretched endlessly above, its vaulted ceilings shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that moved like living constellations. This was the heart of the Galactic Assembly, where the fate of entire civilizations was decided. At the center of the chamber, flanked by Earth's finest diplomats, stood Admiral Elena Vaughn, her crisp uniform standing in stark contrast to the flowing, iridescent robes of the alien representatives surrounding her. She had seen this moment coming. The whispers, the murmurs in closed-door meetings, the way alien delegations flinched at humanity's past when it was laid out in sterile, emotionless reports. They had already made up their minds. And yet, Foreign Secretary Charles Wynne still stood before them, his voice steady, measured. Esteemed members of the Galactic Assembly, humanity has evolved beyond its violent past. We have ended our wars, united our people, stabilized our world. We seek only to contribute to the great interstellar community. His voice carried through the chamber, echoing against the impossible heights of the assembly hall. A hush followed his words, but Elena saw the writing on the wall. The primary counselors sat on their elevated thrones, each representing one of the founding species of the Galactic Union. Their forms were as varied as the stars' chitinous exoskeletons, bodies composed of sentient gas, luminous beings encased in liquid metal shells, but their decision was singular. The Daxian counselor spoke first, its translator reducing its warbling clicks to a flat, emotionless voice. We have examined Earth's history in detail. Elena didn't need to hear the rest. She knew what would come next. No species in recorded history has spent as much of its development engaged in war. Your technological advancements stem from conquest, your economy from competition rather than cooperation. Such traits have no place in a peaceful galaxy. Wynne opened his mouth to object, but the insectoid Krell silenced him with the mere twitch of an antenna, activating the chamber's speaker system. The risk assessment is conclusive. Humanity evolved through conflict, not harmony. You are inherently destabilizing to galactic peace. Elena's jaw tightened. They feared Earth. Feared humanity. She had suspected this from the moment their questioning had shifted from curiosity to caution, from interest to suspicion. Dr. Harun Patel, Earth's lead science minister, stepped forward, desperation lacing his usually composed tone. Our competitive nature has driven innovation that could benefit all. Our medical technology can be developed by cooperative species without the accompanying risk. The Mithran counselor interrupted, its crystalline form pulsing with cold finality. We have seen civilizations like yours before. Those granted early access to interstellar technology invariably attempt territorial expansion. The sentence landed like a final nail in a coffin. The counselors turned inward, conversing through private frequencies. A murmur of discomfort rippled through the assembly as thousands of representatives exchanged glances. Some with pity, others with barely concealed satisfaction. When the metallic-bodied central counselor finally spoke, the verdict was absolute. The decision is unanimous. Earth is classified as a Category 3 civilization, technologically advanced, but culturally unsuitable for integration. You will be quarantined to your solar system. Any breach beyond the designated boundary will be considered an act of aggression. A cold silence followed. Elena had seen men break under lesser pronouncements. Wynn barely managed to steady himself on the podium. "For how long?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The counselor didn't hesitate. "Until you demonstrate fundamental evolutionary change in your aggressive tendencies." "How long?" The metallic form shifted slightly. "Based on predictive models, no fewer than 50,000 years. The chamber erupted into murmurs, but for Elena, the words rang in her head like a war drum. 50,000 years. Longer than human civilization had existed. A death sentence. Dr. Patel made one last attempt. "We formally request permission to appeal. The council's decision is final." And just like that, it was over. As security drones moved in, guiding the Earth delegation toward their ship, Elena walked beside Lieutenant Ari Kim, one of her most trusted officers. "They're making a mistake," Ari whispered, her voice tight with disbelief. Elena's expression remained unreadable. "A severe one." In silence, they left the grand chamber, moving through the endless, shimmering corridors of the council station. The station itself was a marvel technology centuries beyond anything Earth had. Weapons, energy sources, propulsion systems. Elena memorized everything. Every layout. Every defense mechanism. Every flaw. As they boarded their vessel, Secretary Wynn slumped into his seat, his face etched with the burden of failure. "What do we do now?" Elena looked out at the distant stars, her voice steady as steel. "We prepare." They had two choices: accept their fate and wither in exile. Or adapt. Evolve. Survive. They would make their own empire. The underground facility hummed with energy, its very walls alive with the quiet hum of humanity's defiance. It had been 20 years since the exile. 20 years since Earth had been sentenced to isolation. But instead of crumbling, humanity had done what it always did when faced with an impossible challenge: it found a way forward. Dr. Patel wiped sweat from his forehead as the holographic simulation hovered above the lab table. The swirling energy pattern contracted, then stabilized into a perfect torus. "It's holding," his assistant whispered, eyes wide. "Field integrity, 93% and stable." Dr. Patel exhaled slowly. "Record all parameters. We run the real test tomorrow." In the years since their exile, Earth had done the impossible. Old rivalries faded as humanity united under a singular purpose: survival. Resources once spent on war had been redirected to the greatest scientific initiative in human history: Operation Prometheus. It started with stealth probes, drifting past the quarantine boundary under the guise of cosmic debris. The Council's patrols destroyed most, but a few slipped through, gathering intelligence. The breakthrough had come 10 years into the project. The Council had underestimated humanity's ability to reverse engineer even the smallest scraps of information. And now, after 2 decades of exile, they were ready. Admiral Elena Vaughn, now Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Initiative, received the transmission in her hidden command center beneath the Pacific Ocean. "It works," Patel's voice came through. "We're ready for the test phase." A slow smile spread across Elena's face. She turned to her strategic team. "Initiate Phase 2. The Council had feared humanity's aggression. but they had given them time. Time to grow. Time to build. And soon, the galaxy would learn what exile had created. Humanity was no longer just surviving. It was rising. And it would not be caged.